So I heard you were History China this year. What did you learn that was interesting?
Well, there are a few things that, well, I thought it was all interesting. But there are a few things that they happen periodically across the different dynasties. But it's like these milestones. And there are things that I think everybody should know more about. Like not just international students, but I think that Americans and everybody especially need to learn about these things because they're important and we can learn from them. So starting off with Confucius.
Who was Confucius?
Well, during the Warring States period, he was one of the founders of a school in one of the 100 schools of thought. And I think that Confucius is just a representative of all the 100 schools of thought people. It's really that era. But what I'm really trying to get at with Confucius, and also later the Seven Sages, is like the culture of China. What the foundation, the basis of all their culture and Chineseness. Because that's really important, because if China's an up and rising superpower, we need to know what China is and why they're like they are. Second, Ming voyages. I think the Ming voyages are just the epitome of everything that's cool about China. Because everything about China is interesting, but there are some things that are just like, that's so cool. That's just awesome. For example, like, of course the Ming voyages, but they built the Great Wall of China. They do all these cool projects, and they're ambitious, and they think differently, and the Ming voyage is just like a symbol of their awesomeness. Next up, now on like a more somber note, Taiping Rebellion. I think that people need to know about this because, well, this one I kind of want to take a camera into like a densely populated city and ask people if they knew Jesus had a little brother and just film their reaction. Because this is kind of like a really important foundation of why China is like it is, because a big controversy is like the freedom of religion in China. So we need to know that they have reasons why they don't have complete freedom of religion, and this is a big one of them, because a lot of people died and it wasn't good. So I don't really want to paint China a picture of like being monstrous and awful, but they have reasons for doing what they're doing, so we shouldn't judge them before we know those reasons. Next, Mao, Century of Revolution, all of that. Everything coming off of the Century of Humiliation, everything after that, up until now, is really important because, well, not only because there was like tragedies, like the Great Leap Forward and bad things like that, but also we need to understand why China is how it is and the process that they went through to get there. Because it's kind of hard for a Westerner to understand the relationship between Taiwan and China without going through the entire Civil War and learning about that. And also, we're just after Mao. Like on the timeline, we're right after Mao. In the big perspective of thousands of years, we're just like a little blip right after what Mao has done.
Right.
And we need to know about him because we're right here in history. We're pretty much in the same era. And we're living in like the aftermath of what he created, whether it was good or bad. And finally, Song Dynasty. Well, it's not so much the Song, but the Mongols. I think this gets overlooked a lot, but it really struck me when we watched that video that Mr. Brown made about how the Song Dynasty was on the brink of an industrial revolution. They were making steel and all these great like innovations, and then they were conquered by the Mongols. So it's like, oh yeah, by the way, China could have been a superpower. China could have surpassed us. We could be on the bottom. We could have been humiliated and sliced up like a melon for 100 years. That's kind of a big deal that we were this close to being passed by China. And it was really thanks. It's kind of a weird sentence, but it's almost thanks to Genghis Khan for doing that, even though it's kind of bad. So, and after that, everything might have changed. If they had their revolution, world history would be completely different. That's a major turning point to me. That kind of gets overlooked. And I really want to learn more about that, and I think other people should also learn more about that. So those are the things that I really like in the history of China and that I took away and that I'll remember. So.
Awesome.